I'm Kane, that's Copes, and while the relationship continues to build here and the chemistry is unmatched, in the NBA the tension is starting to build, and we have seen some old school fracas, brouhahas, argy-bargy, push and shove, whatever you want to call it, Copes, but the tension is starting to rise.
You know why? Because it's almost playoff times. These guys are fighting for their lives. They want the playoff money. They want the ring.
Did you get that way during your career? Did you start to get a little bit fired up, a little bit testy at this time of the season?
Absolutely, because I was getting a bonus. If we won a championship, the bonus money was coming in. No, the love for the game, though, once you get to this level, it's all about getting an edge on your team, knocking somebody out.
Copes, we know you well enough to understand that the first thing that comes out of your mouth is the honesty. It was about the cash and not the love of the game, but that is totally fine and we accept that. But in the NBA, I did mention that we have started to see some push and shove, and we saw it between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Sacramento Kings here to end the game. The game is over. Giannis is dribbling out the clock, and Trey Lyles says, I don't think so, pal. I'm going to reach in there and give you a little shove. And Brook Lopez, this is what you love to see, protecting your superstar, Copes.
He's the enforcer. Look at that big body. He lets these guys know you can't put your hands on our superstar. If you hurt our superstar, we don't have a chance. And look at Giannis walking away. Giannis said, I don't want a piece of that. I want to make sure I'm on the floor. But Lopez, look how big. Look, it takes 5 guys to literally hold Lopez back because he's not hearing that.
And as you know, Copes, I've spent a lot of time around the Milwaukee Bucks, and there is 7-footers, and then there is those 7-footers that are just different. And Brook Lopez...
But everyone's a 7-footer for you.
That is very, very true. But Brook Lopez is a monstrous human. I mean, he is big. But as a superstar of your own team back in the day, this is the second week in a row I've called you a superstar. Keep that in mind, Copes. Do you like that protection? Like, what is Giannis thinking as he walks off the court, understanding that Brook Lopez has just gone into bat for him?
Well, he knows he's got backup. I mean, he knows because guys are going to come at him every single night, and he knows that his teammates are not hearing that. If you hurt me, I got guys coming after you, and that's why those guys are so good.
Now, I got some mail across my desk. We've spoken about your NBA career before and your relationship with Charles Barkley, but I did get some mail that you were involved in a huge brawl in the NBA back in the day. What can you tell us? What, have you been hiding something from us?
Listen, huge brawl is right. I wasn't involved. I was scared. I was a scared chicken standing on the sidelines. I think you see my eyes. I'm standing there about to bite my tongue off. Look at these guys going
Barkley,
at it.
Lambia.
Just going at it. Rick Mahorn. Look, and we're right in front of the bench. And I'm standing there, please don't hit me, please don't hit me. This is as scared as I've ever been in my life.
Really? So you didn't want to, so you're not involved here. We can't see you.
You're gonna see me. You're gonna see me almost trying to run away here. But these guys, and Edwards and Mahorn, there I am, there's a Copeland, standing there nervous, please don't hit me, Isaiah, please, no one hit me. I'm nervous. And the guys are just talking trash. Look, and that kept going. It didn't stop there. They went in the back, and guys are still going at it. But it was a great spectacle.
But we do talk about, and I think it's probably better to call it push and shove rather than a fight. I think using the fight for that Milwaukee-Sacramento thing, it's probably a little bit over the top. But this stuff, these guys were not messing around back in the day.
Oh, back in the day, you got to throw some knuckles. You got to hit someone, and someone got knocked out, but then they would suspend you for 3 or 4 games, and then it was all over. But now, a little bitty push and shove, guys get fined $50,000, $100,000, and everyone's friends.
But I know you, Copes, well now. We've spent a lot of time together, both here at work, but I have not seen that look on your face. Look
at the hair. Look at the hair, bro.
Yeah, the hair is absolutely superb.
Scotty Brooks standing there. Kenny Payne, look at some famous guys there, you know. Hershey Hawkins, all those guys standing there. And Bill Lambert walks past, and he's giving me the look. And I'm saying, please, Bill, just keep walking. Don't come my way. He's a big boy.
I honestly don't blame you for that. Those were some serious fights back in the day. But let's wrap up this topic by hearing from Giannis and Mike Brown, Sacramento Kings head coach, as they discuss what went on at the end of the game.
Being upset, and he usually is not that upset. He was yelling, "Don't do that again! Don't push him like that!" You know. And then I realized, I was like, "Oh man, he pushed me in my back." You know, obviously, I appreciate Brook having my back. That's my guy. You know, not just on the court, off the court, for life. He's my guy, and definitely gonna pay for his tax. I'm gonna, reimburse him. I already told him. But it's, I just appreciate people, you know, having my back.
100%. You know, I don't know what happened, but so we ain't taking no shit from nobody. Trust me on that. And they all gonna have each other's back in there. That don't mean we gonna go out there and start something. We're not. But we gonna stand up for ourselves and each other.
Copes, there is always two sides to every story, but now from the NBA, we're bringing it a little bit close to home with a man that you know very well, a 16-year NBL vet, a two-time champ, and a man that played a very important role in those championship teams with the Melbourne Tigers. Ray Gordon, thanks for taking some time with us today on Kane and Copes.
Thank you for having me, guys, at such short notice, but thank you. Happy to be here.
Now, Ray, is it fair to say you had the white line fever? Is that fair to say?
Well, that has been alleged, and probably it was true. But I was performing my role, and I did that very well.
Well, before you say anything more, let's have a look at you on the court. Ray, talk to me about what's happening here.
Well, as you know, Copes, when you're playing different teams, you sometimes get a bit upset at the opposition players. They say certain things, they point at you, they ridicule you, and unfortunately, you have to defend your position in life. And no more than sport. Sport is what people don't realise in sport is that it's competitive. Fans and parents sometimes don't realise how competitive it is and how cutthroat it is at a sporting level and a professional level, and in fact these days it's ever so more because it's actually more so a business.
Ray, you spoke about your role for that Melbourne Tigers team, and we've seen some of the highlights there, but people often throw the word around enforcer. Was that something that you took pride in for this Melbourne Tigers team, or what was your role with that team?
Lindsay's role for me was basically a defensive specialist, relieve Copes or Drewy for short periods to give them a rest. They're our studs, they're our main players, and I had no problem with that. Mine was a limited role, and that was to be a defensive specialist and stop some of the quicker guards or the better players and give the guys a rest. But look, I did that well. I was happy with the role and had a great 16-year career. And being a role player, I played for 16 years, so it prolonged my career. So it's all good.
Ray, when you watch some of the fights now versus some of the fights back in our day, which were tougher?
Let me tell you now. Look, I'd say back in our day. I mean, you look at some of the NBL situations, fights, and in the NBA, it's basketball has gone to a cleaner level, which is probably a good thing. There's code of conducts in place in both the NBL and the NBA for players, fans, and the teams themselves. So it's a good thing. I agree with it.
You mentioned the fact that it might have cleaned up a little bit. Obviously, I think we all agree with that. Was there ever a situation in your career where things got a little bit out of hand or too far, where you were even thinking in the moment, all right, this is starting to get pretty serious?
Well, that probably happened at training most of the time. And we trained extremely hard. We partied hard. We were all competitive. We had our roles. And, as I said, a lot of people don't realise how stressful it is playing a professional sport. You're constantly under the microscope. Every year is Groundhog Day. There's new young kids coming up who want your spot. And unfortunately, you have to be, and you are hyper-competitive. That's why you play a professional sport, because you love the sport you're playing. You want to win, and you want your club and your team to do well. And that's a good thing.
What about playing alongside Copes and Gazy? So you spoke about being a role player. When Copes came in, I think you mentioned he might have taken your place, which rude stuff from Copes.
Come on, Kane.
That is rude stuff from Copes. But in all seriousness, being that role player and coming in playing that defensive role, did you take pride in protecting these two guys who you knew that the opposition were always coming out and going after?
Well, what people don't realise is that someone like Andrew was constantly under defensive pressure. And a lot of that, it got physical. Andrew, suffered a lot of injuries through the defensive intensity and playing a lot. And similarly with Copes, they're getting pushed around, beat around, and it was part of the game. So I'd come and relieve these guys and give them an opportunity just to get a little bit of a breather. But in the 90s, it was a lot more physical. I'm not saying it isn't now. The guys are bigger, they're quicker. It's more an athletic sport now rather than a physical sport.
Let me just say, Ray, thank you for being you, because in training, you literally beat the crap out of me and Gazy, and that's how we were able to handle some of these guys in the NBL. So thank you for that.
Anytime, Copes. I love beating the shit out of you. That was part of my role. And but hey, remember, Copes, 97, we were second on the ladder halfway through the season. We weren't playing well. Team wasn't playing, and part of my role was just to make sure we were competitive. And hey, we got it together, won 16 games in a row, and ended up winning the championship. So that was my role. Happy with it. Played a long time. Loved the club. Loved Lindsay and Margaret and all the guys I play with. And we had a great team. 93 won the championship, and we're having our reunion very shortly, which is going to be a lot of fun at my venue, Governors Hall in Hawthorn East. So, hey, happy to be part of it. Played a great sport. People know me, and I'm coaching at the moment as well. So I'm giving back to the sport. Fortunately, I have to readjust my coaching because I grew up with coaches like Ken Watson, Lindsay Gaze, Bruce Palmer, and they're hard men, hard coaches. And in this day and age, we have to be a bit more diplomatic, parents, players, and I've had to adjust my style because I'm a product of Lindsay Gaze, he was a hard coach.
So in other words, you're not teaching the kids to beat the shit out of anyone. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely not. No. Even though a couple of my guys have been beat up recently by some tough teams, but that's okay. You're not going to negate the physicality from basketball or any sport. Not going to happen.
Like many, I grew up watching those Melbourne Tigers teams, though, and you're such a big part of the history of the game in this country. Is it sad for you that the Melbourne Tigers aren't out there on the floor in the NBL today?
Oh, look, it breaks my heart. It actually breaks my heart. I think I understand the decision that was made. Melbourne Tigers plays in the NBL 1, which is a great thing. It's got a strong junior club, both girls and boys, and a senior program. But yeah, hey, should it be there in the NBL? Absolutely. It's one of the oldest clubs in Australia, starting back in the 1927, I think it was, Ken Watson, and our history of the club. We've had some amazing players come through the club. Brian Gorgon started with the club. Brett Brown, Philly coach, was one of our assistant coaches in the 90s. Al Westover, Ray Tomlinson is Australian coach, and it's a bit sad, but you never give up the dream. One day, who knows? Who knows what happens, and we'll be reinstated like we should be in the NBL.
So Ray, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're a lawyer now. You're a chef. You own a bar. Tell me about that.
Well, we've always been involved in hospitality. We obviously, I've got my building licenses as well, so we do developments, residential, commercial. Went back and did law. I think I grew up, as you know, Copes, in a very underprivileged working class environment. Ken Watson, Lindsay and Margaret would feed me, house me and support me, which was a great thing for me and the club, and obviously enabled me to get an education. Initially it was science, applied science, then retired and went into law and had a practice for 12 years, but a little bit over law at the moment. Law is very, very stressful and very intense. But I like coaching. I like doing property development. I like doing new things and trying different things, which is important. You should always be challenging yourself. And I think part of, we talk about the physicality of players, and players will always be competitive. Especially in the NBA, where you've got guys that are making a lot of money, coming from predominantly underprivileged backgrounds, and when you're thrown into the spotlight with that much money, they're going to make mistakes, and that's just, we need to understand that and educate and support those players that have made mistakes. It's that simple.
So with the pub, what's the specialty? Let's be honest, I love to eat, and I am looking for a new venue to check out. So what is the specialty?
Hey, look, Governors Hall, it's a pub, it's a pizzeria, it's a fast casual environment for hanging out. It's in Hawthorn East, it's in southeastern suburbs. Do a lot of functions, which is great. Give back to the community, entertainment. So look, it's a family fun place for people to hang out, drink, and as I said, we're having our 93 championship reunion there, which is great. We'll get a couple hundred people, and we'll talk about the old times. Mm-hmm. Myself and my wife, we own it. We don't drink anymore. So we'll be on the lemonade, and we'll be serving copes and the other players. And so yeah, look, it's a pub where people drink, socialise, and this is what's you need in communities. After COVID, it's devastated communities. If banks were too big to fail in 2008, then I say hospitality is too big to fail, because people need a place to go, cafes, restaurants, pubs, and socialise, and we need to reconnect people in society, which is. Out of COVID, it's going to come a lot of stress, financial stress. Mental health is a disaster at the moment, with people having major issues. Kids are having major issues, and it's sad. It's actually sad, very sad.
Now, speaking of coming to the pub, what if we bring the show to the pub next year? Can you handle that?
Copes, I can handle everything and anything. You know that. You know that. We can't talk about what happened in the 90s, but we can handle anything, Copes. Everything and anything. It's all good. It's all good.
Ray, as I mentioned at the start, you are a big part of the history of basketball in this country. And every time I talk to Copes about stories from the Tigers, your name inevitably comes up. So we appreciate your time today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. It's been a pleasure. See you at the pub soon.
Copes, and I have to say, I think Ray might have played it down a little bit. You were obviously alongside him for a very long time. How tough was he?
He was one of the toughest guys I've ever played with. No kidding. Not because we're talking about him now, but he did a job on and off the floor. His job in the game was to slow guys down like Ricky Grace and Shane Hill and those guys who got hot. Because we concentrated more on the offensive end, he'd come in and rough those guys up a little bit. But again, like I said, in practice, because me and Gage were on the same team, he'd rough us up. So we were used to that, and when we got in the game, we were able to play. So he was magnificent for the team.
So you weren't intimidated by Ray?
No, well, let me tell you.
A little.
Ray fought everybody on our team, and he backed himself up. He was a good guy.
All right, that was a fun chat for sure. Now let's get to the NBA's top 3 dunks of the week.
The Nuggets having trouble getting stops. Now Porter Jr. Oh, and that one. And early on, this might be the play that turned around the game of the Nuggets' comeback to win.
Ingram on the give and go. Oh my gosh. That was some smoke. And here's a wireless connection that you can't miss.
Oh, climb the ladder. My goodness, look at that.
They're rushing some of the shots, Mark.
Rushing, a little lack of confidence at times.
Kawhi Leonard. Largest lead of the night. Timeout, Toronto.
Grown man finish. Mama, there goes that man.
Takes off the bench for a season high 18 on the fly. Curry, he was running back on defense as he released the ball. He knew it was going in.
The Golden State Warriors are just lurking in the background right now, Copes. They are in the mix and still absolutely a chance to go back-to-back this year. And Steph just turned 35 earlier this week, which actually makes me a little bit sad, but he does look like he's still in his prime and without question has changed the game with his shooting from the outside.
Still my team.
Yeah, well, you do like the Warriors.
Yeah.
Speaking of guys that have changed the way the game has played, I already know you're going to go someone old school because this is what you do every single week, but can you think of another player that has changed the game?
Dennis Rodman.
Okay.
A rebounding fool. This guy would get you 20 rebounds a game, go out and party, go to Vegas, have a couple of days off, come back and get you another 20, and not worry about a shot. He was and one of the best defenders in the league. Just an athletic fool.
Because of, and I say people like myself, I'm throwing myself under the bus here now, the younger generation, do you think that he gets enough respect? Because everyone looks and says, yeah, he was out partying and let's watch The Last Dance and he wasn't a true professional. Do you think he is undervalued?
I think he's undervalued because there's not another person that can get you 20 rebounds night in and night out. Not worry about his shot. Ego under the table. He just went out and did what he needed to do to help his team win. Detroit, the Bulls, he was around, he did the work.
And only 6'7" as well. So you talk about one of the greatest rebounders of all time, undersized by today's basketball as well.
You would know about undersized.
Yeah, I absolutely would. And, you know, quite frankly, and picking on my height every single week, Coach, we're going to have to start to get some new material.
I'm sorry.
Okay, did you ever party with him?
Never partied with him, but I heard about some of the big parties. We probably can't talk about that on this show.
Okay, let's get to some of the best 1-2 combos in NBA history. We're not just talking today, we're talking NBA history. And again, I said NBA, so you cannot say Copeland and Gaze, all right? Who have you got on the list?
My list goes Kareem and Magic.
Okay,
5
LA,
championships.
5 titles.
Yep.
And I will say one thing that people probably don't realize, when Magic Johnson came to LA, they won the title when he was a rookie. Kareem had already been in the league for 10 years. He was already 30 plus.
Well, listen, Magic brought the showtime to the Lakers, and Kareem stayed and hung on for another couple of years. Got the job done.
All right, pretty solid start, I have to say, from you. Who else you got?
Scotty and Michael, 6 championships. 6 championships. Yes.
Scotty and Michael. I would say Michael and Scotty. It's a bit like Kane and Copes, the way they've got Kane and Copes. Some people start to question why they did that. But 6 titles, and this is a story that obviously is well known, but Michael went and played a little bit of baseball in between, came back in one of the seasons late, so they won 6 titles out of 8. Would they have just gone through and won 8 if Michael had stayed the whole time?
Probably. He was that dominant. The team was that dominant. They had Rodman as well.
Yes.
Scottie Pippen was an all-around player. Luke Longley was hanging around. They probably could have won 8 in a row if Michael didn't decide to lace up the boots.
Steve Kerr, you can keep going through the list of names with the Chicago Bulls. All right, who else you got? And I can sense that you're starting to move into the modern times, which the viewers will love.
I'll help you out. Shaq and Kobe. What about that?
Love it.
How many
Love
championships? Since you're the stat man, how many championships?
They won 3 together and probably could have won more. It doesn't seem, from what we've heard from the stories over the years, that they got along too well. And let me ask you from this lens, with these two.
Sure.
How difficult is it to continually get it done on the floor if you're having problems in the locker room?
Well, listen, when they say problems in the locker room, I don't think they're as big as people think they were. These guys had massive egos, massive paydays, and you're playing in L.A. where it's showtime, and you have to put on a show night in and night out, so the pressure was on them. But you got to give them credit. They did it. They got it done.
Yeah, and you talk about getting it done in the postseason. Shaq was putting up 30 points and 15 rebounds a night across those postseason runs in the early 2000s as well. I'm going to jump in with a duo of my own, and I think...
Let me guess, young kids.
They're a little bit younger. They're a bit more of my vintage.
Tatum?
Tatum? No. But I think that they absolutely do deserve some consideration.
Giannis and his brother?
Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. 4 titles, and I'll tell you why I like these guys, Coach, because we don't see it as often anymore, and I think it's a real shame for the fans, and also for not just the fans of the Golden State Warriors, but fans around the league that get to see these duos do it for a long period of time. Both drafted by the Warriors, been there for over a decade together, and unfortunately, you don't see these types of runs as much anymore.
You're absolutely right. I must agree, and this is unusual for me. I'm agreeing with you.
Absolutely.
Listen, 2 of the best shooters in the NBA, they're friends, they continue to play well, they continue to get better. I expect them to go, and guess what? I expect them to make a long run in the playoffs.
5 championships.
Maybe not championship, but they'll make a run.
All right, that would take it to the next level. As we say every week, we would love you to be mic'd up. Unfortunately, we can't get that audio, so we're going to Tim Hardaway Jr. mic'd up against the Philadelphia 76ers.
That was a great pass, Dwight. That was game-like. Like it. That's a good one. Let's go, fellas. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Have a good one, fellas. Let's go. Have a good one. Have a good one. Have a good one. I got Harris. Good shot. I'm low. I'm low. Guy, go. Yeah, Taylor, look up. Low. Guys. 2 cuts drop. Weak side, right side, corner. Try it. Square. I'm low. Kai, be ready. By yourself, Justin, square. 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 By yourself. Red that. Square. Jam exit. Stop ball, stop ball. Stay up, Justin. Reg, good job, Reg.
We all know the burgers are better at Hungry Jack's, but today we're here to find out what is better on the basketball court, beating your arch rival by 1 point or unleashing a 40-plus point beatdown.
Kane, wait a minute. I got something to say first. Gibbo, thanks for getting here on time. You're looking good. You got your hair cut. Look, I see now you're ESPN, you're big time ESPN, huh?
Taking after you, mate. Better late than never. I'm here.
Beating your arch rivals by 1 is nothing better. Nothing better. Nah. Seeing their hearts break?
By 40.
You taking 40?
You want to choke the life out of them so they hate you every time they see you.
I love it.
Nah, I think you're up by 40. It's too easy. Imagine a heartbreaking game-winning shot on the buzzer, 1 or 2 points. It's close. They think they're going to win it, and then you snuff the life out of them right at the end.
Think of all the excuses. Down by 40, it just wasn't our night. We had a bad game. You lose by 1, you give everything. That crushes a team.
See, if you only win by 1, they think they're good enough to beat you. They think they're unlucky. I want them to know They had no chance.
That was the best they could do, and they still couldn't beat you.
What about when you guys played United?
Beat them by 40. We got to beat them by 40 every time.
There we go. You see the pause? You had to think about it, didn't you?
40.
That's right.
Do you even know, Copes, what it even feels like to even win by a point? That's too close, ain't it?
Yeah, man, we had superstars back in my day. We had Brackey, we had Gaze, we had Copeland. There's no 1 point. Man, we're up by 1 in the first. We're up by 40 in the first 10 minutes of the game.
You might be up 1 in the first 2 seconds of the game. It's gonna be a blowout, ain't it?
Every time.
I'll give the points to Gibbo and Brock off there. A huge weekend of NBA coming up on ESPN, your home for hoops, starting with Golden State at Atlanta, 10:30 a.m. on Sunday. Don't worry about that one, Copes. You won't be awake for that. So let's move ahead to the Dallas Mavericks and the Los Angeles Lakers. Quick take.
I got the Lakers. Lakers are on a roll. They're playing weight. Dallas, nah, they're out of here.
Dallas is skidding a little bit. Anthony Davis playing some fantastic basketball. Copes, you were superb today. Great show. Catch you next week.
Wow.